Welcome, wrestling fans, to episode 3 of the Obtuse Angles Wrestling Podcast with Kyle and Jeremy. This week, talking about what is considered to be the worst WrestleMania of all time, WrestleMania 9. Jeremy.
WrestleMania 9.
Wrestling. I'm very excited about this episode, and here's why. Unlike the previous 2 episodes, I had never sat down and watched WrestleMania 9 from beginning to end before. And the reason for that is, obviously, back in 93, I didn't have pay-per-view. It was $30. I lived up a holler back then, you know what I mean, in eastern Kentucky.
Right.
And hopefully there are people listening internationally, or at least nationally, who don't know what a holler is. That's a little road between 2 mountains. That's where I live. So we didn't get pay-per-view in the trailer.
Now, stop me if I'm wrong here, but isn't it true that if you live anywhere else in the United States that is not eastern Kentucky, it's actually a hollow?
A hollow, yeah. But we decided to make it a little trashier, which is why the pronunciation has been bastardized a bit. So I wasn't able to watch it, and throughout the years, I would go online, I would read people talking about how terrible it was. I would always hear how it was the worst WrestleMania of all time, and I think that 9 was the only one I had never seen front to back because I heard it was so bad. That's why when I sat down yesterday and I watched this whole show, and I think this is going to shock you, a lot of it I didn't think was that terrible.
Now, I need to disagree with you, respectfully, of course. I think what had happened with you, excuse me, was that maybe they had set the bar so low for you.
I think that's what it was.
That basically Rajah Lyon versus Giant Gonzalez probably could have seemed like Flair Steamboat to you.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of happens.
I think that might have been it. I think, I went out of my way so long avoiding watching the pay-per-view, and I heard so many bad things about it that when I finally sat down and watched it, I expected it to be just utter shit from pillar to post. And when there were some good moments in it, I think that shockingly, I was like, this ain't that bad.
Right.
But again, if I'd watched it in 93, maybe I would have a different opinion on it.
Now, I think some of the wrestling aspect of it, there were some good things. There were some good spots, some good, high spots that I thought were really cool.
Oh, yeah.
There were things that I enjoyed about WrestleMania 9, but it was far outweighed by so many things that I hated about WrestleMania 9.
Well,
and let me go ahead and say this. The thing I hate most about WrestleMania 9 is that it's shot outside. I don't know what it is about wrestling events. Like the most previous WrestleMania, 2015.
31.
It was outside. I don't like it. I don't know what it. I can't explain why I don't like it.
Right.
Like, I don't even want to watch it until the main event when it starts to get a little bit dark.
Well,
I don't know what it is, man.
I get what you're saying. I like it because visually it's different. Whenever they shoot something on the West Coast, like WrestleMania 31, and they do it outdoors, the problem is that it starts at 7 or 8 o'clock Eastern time, and that's, 4 hours behind, right? So by the time you get to the main event, then it's just starting to get dark, and I think that wrestling does lose something. I mean, when you're outdoors, and there's actually a documentary on Netflix called The History of WrestleMania, and one of the shots is Vince McMahon talking to Shawn Michaels, and they're at WrestleMania 9. And Vince is trying to convey to Shawn that when you do a wrestling show outdoors, the sound has nowhere to go. It just goes up. So you lose a lot of the acoustics.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the opposite of, I've always heard the arena in Chicago, the WWE does all the time, is that the Rosemont Horizon, or am I wrong about that?
No, I'm not sure.
I've always heard that the acoustics there are spectacular, and it makes anything sound good. So it's kind of the opposite in that way. So I get that. But at the same time, I'm kind of more forgiving these days of wrestling shows that are outside because WWE, every fucking show looks exactly the fucking same.
It really does. You can't tell one from the other.
In a cost-cutting measure, the WWE decided to do away with different sets. So that's why the same set is used for Raw and SmackDown, and subsequently the shows tape before. So that means that Main Event and Superstars and every other show looks exactly the same. Then now the pay-per-views look the same. They bring out some tiny little screens in front, but for the most part, WrestleMania now is the only show, excluding NXT, that looks different.
That's what I was going to say. You can always tell a WrestleMania, and I don't know if it's the set decoration or the lack thereof these days, like you said, But maybe it's the atmosphere.
Yeah.
But there's always something a little bit different about WrestleMania, and you can always tell WrestleMania. You can put on any random pay-per-view, and you can tell, well, this is either WrestleMania or it's not WrestleMania.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you could tell it because the arenas are bigger, but also they put more effort into personalizing the set of every WrestleMania to try to be indicative of the place they're at.
Right. Now, talking about the acoustics and stuff, I noticed that I don't know if it's true or not, but I think this is what I've gathered over the years, is that WWE mics their ring.
Oh yeah.
And
they do it subtly.
Yeah. They didn't, not always. Every once in a while you can hear when like the sound guy probably needs to take the mic under the ring down a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's funny when they do these outside shows because you can actually hear every time one of them will take a bump, you can hear it bouncing off of like the back wall of the, how they got the bleachers that go up on the outside shows.
Oh yeah.
If you listen real careful, you can hear the bumps, the sound of the ring bouncing off everything around it. It
kind of does take me out of it because it's one of those things that I think that you realize but you don't think about because they do it so well as opposed to TNA. Have you ever seen a TNA show live?
No.
They're a lot of fun, but they do it like they do it wrong. Like, because whenever somebody takes a body slam, you hear boom, boom. It's like, whoa, you just turn that off. It's fine, man. The 25 people here at this minor league ballpark don't need to hear the body slams into the mic.
Right.
God bless TNA. I wish they were more successful than they are.
Yeah, well, they try.
They did. Well, they used to.
They don't even. Yeah, they used to try.
But this is not about TNA. This is about WrestleMania 9. WrestleMania 9. Speaking of which, it did take place outdoors at Caesar's Palace, an attendance of almost 19,000 people, which kind of took me back too because I remember, looking at the clips and watching it when I was younger, but I watched it again and it seems like the crowd isn't quite as small as I remembered it being.
Yeah, it's you said 19,000. I didn't think it was 19,000. I mean, 19,000 is tiny for us. That's a Raw almost nowadays.
Okay, you know what? It's 16,891. Looking at it now, so it's about the same thing. But it is tiny. But again, the way they were set up, it looked far more impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than it actually was. So it took place April 4th, 1993. They do a dark match, which I did not see. Tito Santana defeated Papa Shango. So,
I mean, for my money.
For my money, yeah.
I can't even. I was going to make up some bullshit about that being a really awesome match, but
an old-timey classic. I don't know if Santana was the Matador, Tito Santana. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and I think what would have been great about watching that is that Bobby Heenan was on color commentary, and his quasi-racist remarks would have been worth actually listening to that. Especially when he calls the flying forearm the flying burrito. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Dude, the funniest thing to me Bobby Heenan ever said, one of them was, Tito Santana is a lot like a cue ball. The harder you smack him, the more English you get. Independent of anything Bobby Heenan ever did.
The Archie Bunker of wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. He belongs in the Hall of Fame for that comment alone.
Just that one.
He accomplished more in that comment than Coco Beware did his entire career. And yet they're both in the Hall of Fame. Think about that.
Oh, man.
Which, by the way, 2 Coco Beware references in 2 weeks of this show. That ain't bad.
Not bad, man. Well done.
So the show starts off, Tatanka, who at that time was undefeated, against Shawn Michaels, and this was for the IC Championship. A match that I thought was really good. I enjoyed it. I mean, I guess, it ran a little long. It was 18 minutes, 13 seconds. I liked it, though. I thought it was good wrestling.
I can see this is going to be an episode where we really just disagree. I thought that match was the drizzling shits. And
really?
only the drizzling shits in as much as Shawn Michaels was in it. I mean, it's really hard to find a Shawn Michaels match that isn't good.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's such a spectacular worker. A shitty, terrible human being.
Right.
But just a wonderful performer, wonderful worker. I'll tell you something about that match you may not have noticed. There's a spot they do where Shawn Michaels picks up Tatanka and slams him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tatanka's sack comes out the side of his trunks a little bit.
I did not notice Tatanka's sack.
And it's funny because when I watched WrestleMania 9, back when in the days of where you could go out and rent it on VHS.
Oh, yeah. When
I was a kid, you know, 14, 15 years old, I rented it on VHS and brought it home. And I'm sitting there watching it, like eating Chinese food in my bedroom, watching WrestleMania 9.
Yeah.
And
clearly you were a very popular child.
I had a lot of friends.
I was the same way when I was a kid. I remember every Friday my mom would take me to the video store and you'd pick up the cassette and you'd look at the back of it, and I remember there were so many, and there was always the ones I wanted to get, but I couldn't commit to it. Finally I did, and it was a big deal.
That was back when you stood there like your mom was only going to let you get one tape.
Oh yeah.
So you had to stand there and read all 56 boxes to see which one was going to be the best bang for the buck.
Royal Rumble 91 and Royal Rumble 93, and you're looking at them both. You're like, I don't know which one to choose. Oh god! And I remember for whatever reason the wrestling room was always next to the porn room.
It was, and I liked the video store here in our town.
Yeah.
Had the swinging saloon doors into the porn room, so I would stand there and and change my glare from the back of the fucking Wrestle War 90 box, straight into the cracks into the porn room to try to see some of the covers.
Or like whenever somebody would walk through that door, it would swing out, and you'd have like half a second to get a good look of the chick on the cover of it.
Absolutely.
When I grew up the holler, again, we didn't even have like an extra room. It was kind of like it was barely partitioned off. But I remember like they gave so little of a shit that like the kids' movies would be right next to the hardcore pornos.
Nice. America,
you gotta love it, man, and that's what we lost when Blockbuster went out of business.
Thanks, Obama.
So no, I didn't know exactly. Obama single-handedly killed the video store business. I didn't notice Tatanka's sack. That was not something I noticed. That's
I think it was a body slam. Shawn Michaels scoops him up. Kind of awkwardly because I think Tatanka was aware that his nutsack was hanging out the side of his trunks.
Yeah,
but he just kind of went with it. Kind of like when Dusty Rhodes, when his pants would come down, you see his butt crack, he didn't bother pulling them up.
Well,
and you're thinking, why, Dusty?
Well, one of the things I hate is when a guy is selling a move, and you'll see this a lot with inexperienced guys. A dude will be down selling a move, but as he's selling it, he'll readjust his elbow pad
or pull his trunks up.
Right? Yeah, and it's like wow. So you're in so much pain you can't stand up, but you can make sure that your elbow pads look good.
Well, I got to tell you, no matter how much pain you're in, nothing hurts worse than showing your wiener.
That is true.
Or your butt crack.
I never had my dick pop out when I wrestled. Did you?
No, I never did. I mean, it popped out a few times in the locker room.
Oh,
but I was the naked guy in the locker room. Every locker room you went to, there was the naked guy.
One big naked guy.
I did
every
that,
time.
Yeah, I was the big naked guy.
Really? So you were the guy? Because I remember, like when I would change and I had to get nude, I would take it off real quick and then put it back on. But you were the guy, the big naked guy, just stood there.
Well, I was in a little bit better shape.
But you just stood there naked.
Yeah, right? And I do where I put the one foot up on the folding chair and just kind of like the Captain Morgan stance. And I would sit there and talk to and I did it just to kind of fuck with the greenhorns and shit on the show. So.
Okay, but you were the one that did it because it was kind of funny. Every locker room I was in, there was always a guy who did it.
It's usually the oldest wrestler on the show.
Yeah.
He's been in the business for 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
He's gone absolutely nowhere. He's got two bad knees and one big fucking elephant trunk dick.
And
he's always standing around naked.
And he gives no shits.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not one bit. And he'll sit naked the whole fucking time until 5 minutes before it's time for him to go out.
Oh, that is hilarious.
But I did it just to fuck with the greenhorns. Like I would, I'd be bending over to put my boots on, and I'd be bare-assed, and I'd start backing my ass up on them and shit.
Oh, well, see, that's fine though. I mean, that's a beautiful part of the business.
Some good natured ribbon,
This one, so this match, you didn't enjoy it. I liked it. I think that clearly, here's the deal. They had Tatanka, who went in undefeated, and you had Shawn Michaels, who was the IC champ. And in their mind, they said, well, okay, this is going to be a draw because we're either going to see a streak ended or a new champion.
Right.
And unfortunately, it was a DQ, which meant that and I think that they didn't want to get the belt off Shawn, but they also didn't want to end Tatanka's streak, so that's what they did. It kind of felt like a cop-out, but at least I understand the mentality of booking it the way they did.
Yeah, it's the only way they could go, really, was with that ending.
So the next match, the Steiner brothers versus the Head Shrinkers.
Yeah, Rikishi Fatu. It was cool to see him not 60 pounds heavier with blonde hair and doing the worm.
With a 400-pound ass.
Oh, my. That man has got the biggest, nicest ass I've ever seen. He could give me a stink face any day.
You made me snot. Oh, the nicest ass.
Yeah, I like it because it looks like he sat in some cottage cheese.
Well, here's what got me about this match was that Bill Alfonso Fonzie was the referee, man.
Alfonso, baby. I'm Bill Alfonso, and this is Taz.
Oh, I hated Fonzie, man. I did.
I was very excited. I got to say, that was my favorite part of WrestleMania 9 was seeing Bill Alfonso referee.
You know, Vince has made a lot of decisions over the years I've not enjoyed, but one of them I agree with was his decision not to bring Bill Alfonso into the WWE when ECW shut down.
Yeah.
Even as a babyface with RVD, he annoyed the fuck out of me.
He's just
get him, Daddy! Come on, get him, Daddy!
It's just that he's just an annoying little fucker. He really is.
I mean, which works great if you're a heel, but I really don't.
It did not translate to babyface very well.
No, it didn't. He was over though, so what do I know? This match, in my mind, it went on too long. But again, I thought it was fine. I mean, again, I think the issue here, again, like we said earlier, is I came into it with such low expectations, and this was a WrestleMania, and the matches should have had a WrestleMania feel. WrestleMania is special, and these first two matches, on paper, I think that they came off as special, but in the ring, they really didn't. That being said, I didn't think it was a bad match, and before we jumped on here, we watched that spot in the match. I thought, like, that blew me away.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant.
Yeah, well, because Samu has Rick Steiner up on his shoulders, kind of in an electric chair, doomsday device position. And then Fatu comes off for a cross body. Steiner grabs him, whips him over into a power slam. That was a fucking amazing move.
He caught him and power slammed him off the shoulders of Samu. And he almost didn't make the full rotation.
Yeah.
Like that could have ended badly, but it turned out to be a beautiful spot.
Look, beautiful.
And then they wind up with some lame-ass broke-down finish for the match. That should have been the finish.
Well, I get it. I mean, I think that maybe they also wanted to put Scott Steiner over and have Steiner hit the Hurricane Rana or the Frankensteiner. And he
botched it a little bit.
He botched it a little bit, but it at least made sense because he snapped him over and he came out from between his legs, but he at least went face first. Speaking of going face first, there is a botch in that match where it looks like they're trying to stun gun or hot shot Scott Steiner.
Holy shit.
Instead of hitting the ropes, he goes over the top rope on his fucking head.
That's the only thing that I can think they were trying to do was like the old stun gun, the hot shot.
Yeah.
And was it Samu? Samu just winds up dumping him like a fucking lawn dart over the top rope.
Yeah.
And Fatu is vaguely there, but he doesn't. He's vaguely in the vicinity, but he doesn't catch him.
Yeah, I mean that's all I can assume is they were trying to do a stun gun. But I mean, how Scott Steiner didn't die? What if Scott Steiner obviously not the brightest of people? What if he was like the smartest man on earth before that spot?
He was alive.
And then afterward, it was, you want Simpy? You're not gonna get Simpy from me. Big Papa Pump is your hookup, and the next World Heavyweight Championship of the world.
On the world. Heavyweight Championship on the world. I thought he was fucking dead. I think that's the moment where he turned into the clumsy, fumbly Scott Steiner. Like, he got dumped on his head, and he was like, I got to go home and I got to first just completely ditch the English language, and I got to get on steroids and pump up because I'm coming back for my big return.
Man, you want to talk about missed opportunities. The Steiners were in WWE for like a year, man, and they did nothing with them. They eventually finally did. They did win the tag team championships from Money Inc., I believe, but then they lost them pretty soon afterward. But I mean, you have the greatest tag team in the world, and you don't do shit with them.
Right. Yeah, it's I think it goes back to being another one of Vince's creations, or rather not being one of Vince's creations.
I think so. And from everything I've heard, too, I think Scott or Vince might have wanted to split them up, and they said no to that. Plus, the Steiners wanted to go work in Japan half the time, because they were great wrestlers, and they were big American guys, and the Japanese eat that shit up like crazy.
Love it. Yeah, they love it.
So I think that might have factored into Vince's decision. But even with those things, you have the fucking Steiner brothers, man. Just fucking cut loose with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did some great work, man. Some of the feuds they had, like with even Doom, that was back in the day of Butch Reed. Not the greatest in-ring performer, but when you threw him in there with Scott Steiner and Rick Steiner, man, he actually made Butch Reed and Doom really together, kind of $1 million. I mean, Ron Simmons has always been a solid performer.
A solid guy,
but Not flashy, not flary, but there's just something about that feud they had. It was like for 2 years.
Oh
the
yeah,
Steiners versus Doom. It was
I
some really
love
good
Doom.
matches, man.
I thought, man, Doom were just two big ass, badass sons of bitches with a smash mouth style, and
Absolutely.
And WCW, to their credit, being the backwoods Southern racist promotion they were, booked the fuck out of Doom, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, ironically enough, Bill Watts, who one of the reasons why he got fired from WCW was comments that were perceived to be racist, decided to put the world title on Ron Simmons. So,
well, it's not exactly quantum physics here that Bill Watts decided. Well, let's see. We're running shows primarily in Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee. We should have black heels.
You're right.
I mean, it's not rocket science. You know what I mean?
Groundbreaking. The next match, before we get to that, I took some notes down about this show because there were a couple of things in between that I've never really heard anybody mention. I love this. Todd Pettengill. The show cuts to Todd Pettengill in the crowd, and he's interviewing all these people.
Man, that's a name I haven't heard in a very long time.
Todd Pettengill. He is the ultimate radio DJ from the 90s. I love Todd Pettengill. He's interviewing people in the crowd, and he goes to these two Japanese photographers, and it's like stereotype theater up in this motherfucker. Because he goes, he asks one Japanese guy, he goes, "Hey, how are you enjoying your stay?" And the Japanese guy goes, "Stay number one." Yeah.
Wow.
And then he goes to the second Japanese guy, who I believe is a photographer, and he asks him, he goes, "Do you like Yokozuna?" And he goes, "Yokozuna, yeah!"
And then he turns around on the piano and goes, "Ding, ding, 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 ding." That would have been the only thing that would have sent that over top. Oddly enough, is it just me, or did no one else in America seem to notice that Yokozuna was Samoan?
I didn't. I mean, but I was a kid. I totally ate that shit up,
even as a kid, I was like, "There's something not." I didn't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger.
Not Japanesey about
what is
him.
Kokina from the Samoan SWAT team doing wrestling as Yokozuna now? That's
I love how obviously Fuji would wave the Japanese flag. I love how when Yokozuna turned babyface, the only change they made was Fuji started waving the American flag.
That's all. That's all it takes.
I have to cheer for this man now. Which, by the way, if anybody is American as apple pie, a dude who ate himself into a heart attack in his 30s, that is American, goddammit.
That's funny. Jim Cornette was talking about when he managed Yokozuna in the 90s.
Yeah.
And he said they would spend all day at Titan Towers, I think, recording promos.
Yeah.
And they said Yokozuna would be set to do like 3 or 4 promos for that week.
Mm-hmm.
And between takes, he would just sit down with a whole bucket of KFC and just eat KFC like a family bucket.
A family.
He didn't get like a 2-piece and a biscuit. He got like literally a family round, the old round KFC bucket.
Oh hell yeah!
Chicken under his arm,
hell
and he would just like he would go up there with still grease on his lips, cutting promos and shit. Mm-hmm. I'm fat, Kyle.
Yeah.
I am not eating an entire bucket
Come
of.
On. No.
I'm not eating an entire bucket of KFC and go on in front of the camera, in front of millions of people with grease on my lips, fat.
Well, from what I heard, I mean, obviously they pushed Yokozuna to the moon, and one of the reasons why it was his impressive girth, which, by the way, that shows you how much America has changed since the early 90s. Right. We had a fat problem then, right?
Yeah.
And I put on weight myself. It's not like we're two fucking six-pack, Adonises here talking into a microphone. If you see us, you realize that we're just as American as you are.
We have the face and body for radio, for
podcasting. Yeah. Or one of my favorite things I've heard, I have a face for radio and a voice for or a voice for books. I fucked that up. Anyway, wow. Apparently I have the wit for fucking books.
You went to the Shane Douglas School of Promos.
Yeah, I did.
You bashed that promo into oblivion.
He taught me well. But that shows you how much America has changed, because in the early 90s, it was like, oh my God, this man is 400 pounds. Who can believe it?
I was 400 pounds in the 8th grade.
Right. But now, you look at Yokozuna and it's like, yeah, that guy's big, but go down to fucking Walmart.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
what was great though, man, was Yokozuna at his max weight. I mean, they always build him at like 505.
Yeah.
That son of a bitch ain't seen 505 since middle school.
That's what I don't really understand.
It's like they used to build Dusty Rhodes at 245 and 255.
Well, and Yokozuna got bigger, and they would build him at like 700 pounds later on. But I remember they would build him at like 505, and like if the dude's whole gimmick is that he's a sumo wrestler and he's huge, Why is this the one time in wrestling history that you're going to play conservative with the numbers?
Yeah, I have no idea, man. That was rough. But the cool thing about Yokozuna is that even just being a big fat slob, and and I can say that it's okay because a lot of my friends are big fat slobs.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
He had an impressive super kick.
He did.
I mean, he hit it on Bret Hart in that main event for WrestleMania 9.
Yeah,
and it was impressive. I mean, it didn't look like he didn't hobble away from it like it fucking killed him.
Oh no, I mean, and you're right. He did administer. He was a very agile guy. But we're going to get to the main event coming up. Fourth match right now. 8 minutes 28 seconds. Doink the Clown defeats Crush. I love heel Doink the Clown. Heel Doink the Clown is one of my favorite gimmicks of all time, and I think it was so layered and it was deceptively complex because like they turned him face later on and it lost all of its luster. Matt Bourne was the guy that originally played Doink.
Maniac Matt Bourne,
great wrestler, and then like they swapped him out with different people, and when he was a babyface, he was just a wrestling clown. Yeah. That was it. But when he was a heel, man, he had that music that started out fun and then it got dark and
creepy,
he came to the ring. And he wasn't like just an angry, creepy clown. Like they would put over the fact that the guy playing Doink had amateur wrestling abilities. So that added a whole new layer and a whole new dimension to Doink. Like he was an evil clown, but he was a kick-ass amateur wrestler.
And this was kind of before, everybody and their brother talks about being, I'm so scared of clowns. And like it's almost like the cool thing to be.
No,
like
it is. I'm totally,
scared of it. This is kind of before that really took off because before Doink, you had what? Pennywise?
Pennywise, yeah.
I mean, that's really about all you had. And it kind of worked because. And I think the music was cool because he comes out bright and colorful, but it's kind of that like dreary, weird music.
And
he
great.
did kooky shit, like he'd get like an old arm, like an old mannequin arm out from under the ring and hit someone with it. Or
what I love is that oh god, he's wrestling Crush in this match, and before the match starts, they air this video package from Raw or Superstars where Doink comes out and he has like this fake arm, but like it looks like it's his real arm, right? And he rips the arm off and he starts beating Crush over the back with it, and that's what started the match. And on commentary, Vince says something along the lines of, "He ripped his arm out and he's beating him with it." And then Randy Savage of all people has to correct Vince, who's crazy. He's like, no, it's a loaded cast. It's like, but like it's like in Vince at least partially booked this shit, but it's like he was so lost in the moment that he thought that Doink was so angry at Crush that he ripped his arm off and beat him with it.
That's mad. I mean, that is mad. That is very. I mean, you can rip your own arm. And what's crazy is I think that was an honest flub. I can't imagine Vince is like, "All right, Randy, when he pulls out the arm, I'm gonna say it's an arm, and you gotta correct me." I don't think they were feeding Savage lines. I'm pretty sure he got a little lost in the moment there, as Vince does from time to time.
They cut this promo, and Doink cuts the promo, and he says, "After tonight, Crush is going to be seeing double vision." And by the way, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention the toga party. This was JR's first WrestleMania ever. He was on commentary, and everybody there was in a toga.
Yeah,
Gorilla Monsoon, Randy Savage was not in a toga, but it was like a WrestleMania 9 toga-inspired outfit.
Right.
Mean Gene is in a toga. Apparently, according to JR, he recently said this on his podcast, Bobby Heenan ribbed him when he first got there, and he told him, he said, "Hey, man, Vince would really like it if you didn't wear underwear under your toga." like he would really get over with Vince. And JR said that he didn't do that, but can you imagine seeing little JR?
I think he saw the writing on the wall. He was like, "No, I'm pretty sure Heenan's fucking with me at this point."
See the old little slobber knocker waving in the wind.
The little slobber knocker.
I hope he calls his. What does JR sound like during sex? Do we know that? Like, I mean, because he has to get like impassioned. You know what I mean? The way he was when he calls him, "God is my witness, you're broken in half."
God is my witness, I'm coming on your back.
Somebody call the EMTs. Oh, I love JR.
I like that we're 3 episodes in and we're already got callbags.
Yeah. All right.
Beautiful.
So let's go. Let's go back. By the way, I like the toga party. People hated it.
I absolutely hated it.
I liked it because
brother, this is the only episode that we're just not in sync. We're just not on the same page.
I thought it looked and it felt different.
No, yeah, well, I mean, you're right there. It certainly looked and felt different, but I think it was just and I hate to use the word gimmicky. Because
well, it was gimmicky.
Because that's all the World Wrestling Federation was at that time.
It was a spectacle.
Yeah, it was. You're right. It was a spectacle. It was a sight to behold.
Well, I will not invite you to my next toga party.
Well, I'm sorry.
Doink beat Crush 8 minutes 28 seconds in. They do the whole deal, and I believe they debuted it at WrestleMania 9, where a second clown rolled out from under the ring.
Yeah,
and he slid up into the ring. And, he attacks Crush, and then the second clown goes under the ring again. Doink pins him 1, 2, 3. But then a second ref came out, and you thought that they were going to do a dusty finish with this, right?
Yeah.
So the second ref brings the apron up, and they look under the ring, but they can't find the second Doink. Almost as if he had dematerialized into the ether.
Which is actually kind of cool.
No, I like that. And then after the match, they did like the whole Harpo Marx thing from Duck Soup, or like the mirror deal, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, that was okay. And I never was a big fan of Doink, but looking back on it now, that was kind of there's some cool things they did with Doink, I think.
No, I'm telling you, man, go back and watch some of those early Raws. Some of that stuff he did were amazing.
Right on.
Fifth match of the crowd, very short match, 3 minutes 45 seconds. Razor Ramon defeats Bob Backlund, and this is right after Bob Backlund came back, or a little bit after Backlund came back, and Backlund wasn't a heel yet. He was a baby face. He was like Bobby the Brain Heenan had a great line about Backlund, and they said, "Wow, where's Backlund been in all those years he's been off?" Oh, he was a paper boy in Mayberry. He was sweeping up Floyd's barber shop.
Bob Backlund is the most awkward man in professional wrestling, I think.
The most awkward looking.
He just looks so weird. He's
the most milquetoast white guy I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he's very bizarre looking. And it seems like in staying in true fashion with WrestleMania 9, they seem to now Crush and Doink I got, Steiners and Head Shrinkers I got.
Yeah.
But a lot of these pairings didn't seem like they made a whole lot of sense. Like
Razor Ramon and Bob Backlund.
Why is Scott Hall wrestling Bob Backlund? I don't understand why that's a. Do you know that was there a build up to that? Were they in a program together?
Well, I mean, Razor Ramon was clearly a cocaine dealer from Miami, and the thing about it is, Bob thought that he had been stiffed on an 8-ball that he got from Razor, so he got a little coked up.
You know what? I think I do remember that now that you say it.
It's a great angle. Yeah, it was on the Snake Pit. Yeah. That was the one where, Bob decided to, fuck Damien, and that didn't go well for old Bobby. No, actually, I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, literally none of that was true, but you had me sold. I mean, I was glued with ooey bluey to everything you were saying. I was in there. Yeah.
I could have booked WrestleMania 9. It was far more intriguing than what we got.
I think a special child could have booked WrestleMania 9 and probably would have came up with. It didn't make sense. It's
what? You've stumped me. I don't know why they had the match. I'm sure there was a build up, but I don't know what it was.
I think here's how they booked WrestleMania 9. Yeah. They set a retarded child on the floor and gave him all kinds of wrestling figures, and whoever he paired up is who they put working each other at WrestleMania 9.
But again, this is where we're going to disagree yet again, because I thought this match was fine. It went short, but basically the whole match was Bob puts a wrestling clinic on. He out-wrestles Razor, and then at the very end of it, Razor inside cradle 1, 2, 3.
So it was a schoolboy or something like that.
Yeah. And then 1, 2, 3, and that's it, and they quickly got out of it. But I thought it was fine. I mean, Bob hits some old school moves.
Yeah, Bob Backlund's he's a fine wrestler.
Wonderful wrestler.
And I don't know what it is about him. He's so.
You didn't like crazy heel Bob Backlund when he was going to run for president?
No.
Oh my God! Everybody loved that. That was a great character.
Everybody but me, man.
He lost his mind and he became a heel. You don't remember that?
Yeah, no, I know. I remember it. I don't know what it is about Bob Backlund. You ever just not like someone and you can't put your finger on why?
Bob Backlund is that guy for you?
Bob Backlund is. I think it all came from Royal Rumble, because I'm pretty sure Bob Backlund was supposed to go in for I guess every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I think he was supposed to go in for 2 entries, so 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he got the word because you can see the referees are always over. Like you look when they show like a wide shot of the Royal Rumble ring.
I think this is in '92, right? The one where
I
he
believe
came back. Yeah.
And you look at the referees, and they're always Backlund will be laying in the corner, and the referees are always over there talking to him.
Sure.
So what I think happened was Vince got word down to the referees that Backlund needs to go ahead and be eliminated, and he wouldn't get the fuck out of the ring.
Well, see, I've never heard that. I know that in '92.
I don't know if it's true. I don't know the veracity of the statement.
Yeah.
But just watching it, it seems like every single other wrestler who tried to eliminate him from the ring, they would throw him over the top, and he would hang on.
He would sandbag him.
Yeah, and they would try to and then they would just go they would shrug and just walk off. Like, okay, well he's supposed to go, but he's not, Vince. So fuck it. It
was '92 or '93. He set the longevity record because Backlund was in that Rumble for fucking ever, and at that point he would have been like 42, 43 years old.
I think it was inadvertent. I'm pretty sure he wasn't supposed to be in there that long.
Maybe
because every time there was a camera on him, the referees were like whispering in his ear. Yeah. And I can only imagine that they're going, what in the fuck are you doing? You're supposed to be eliminated 15 minutes ago.
Bob thought it was real. That's what it was. I'm not going. It's a shoot, brother. Bob was really out of place as like the white bread baby face. I mean, because
really was.
Bob Backlund was too baby face. He was too white bread in the early fucking 80s for people. So by the 90s, he was out of place.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I always had a soft spot in my heart. I know we're going over here and we're going to get to the next one, but really quickly, my favorite Bob Backlund story is there was a vignette, there we go, with Mick Foley when he was Mankind in the late 90s where he was training. And Foley talks about this in his first book, Have a Nice Day. And he's being trained by like Bob Backlund and Dominique DeNucci and somebody else. And Backlund is giving him tips. And like he's basically his Mickey. He's like, you go for it. Do this. Come on, run. And then Bob says something along the lines of, oh, that'll exacerbate the problem. And then Mick stops and looks at him and goes, I never exacerbate before a match. And then Bob very stoically goes, no one should. And it wasn't planned. It was like they were riffing, so they yell cut and everybody laughs. Besides Backlund, who's like straight face and doesn't even realize it's a joke.
He literally meant that he does not exacerbate before any match.
No one should. So we go to the next match, the fifth one on the card. Money Inc. Defeated the Megamaniacs, Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake, 18 minutes, 27 seconds. This match, oh, sweet Lord, have mercy. The build-up was fantastic. This one, go ahead.
Bob Backlund, Hulk Hogan,
yeah,
Kevin Nash. That's pretty much that's the list right there for me on people I hate. I don't know what it is. Even as a child, I didn't buy into the Hulkamania. I wasn't
really. As a kid, I was a Hulkamaniac like crazy, man.
No, I was not. I was an NWA kid. I think there was two. Like they say, there's two kinds of people in the world, and there's 500 different examples.
Yeah,
it works for professional wrestling. I think there was NWA kids or WCW kids, and then there was WWF kids. I'll
tell you a story about me and how much I loved Hulk Hogan, but why? You're a little bit older than me. You're 57 years old, and I was I'm a few years younger than you. So I started watching wrestling after you. I started in '92.
Right.
That's when I started, and I watched WCW Saturday Night, and I watched WWF. Hulk Hogan was my favorite wrestler. That being said, I had never seen Hulk Hogan wrestle a match. I just knew all my friends liked him. I liked the character. I liked the red and yellow.
No one has seen Hulk Hogan wrestle a match.
Exactly. Hulk Hogan hasn't seen one. So Hulk goes to WCW in '94, and meanwhile, I'm raised at this point on Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. That to me is wrestling. You know what I mean? And so I finally see Hogan wrestle his first match ever, and it's in WCW. And I go, oh my God, I get to see Hulk Hogan wrestle. Because again, I'd never seen him on VHS or anything like that. So finally, I sit down, I watch Hogan wrestle, and this again, I'm used to Bret and Shawn, and I see Hogan, and I go, well, shit, he sucks.
He didn't do anything.
He sucks.
He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
He avoided taking bumps every single time he could have possibly avoided taking a bump.
Yeah.
And then the boot, the leg drop, curtains.
I know, but
he's smoke and mirrors.
He's a smoke and mirrors guy, but he's got a soft spot in my heart. The whole deal, the whole
pants. I fucking hate him. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is.
Lord,
I hate the huckster.
This
I don't
is the
like
debut of angry Jeremy.
I think it is, man. I don't
brother.
know. Everything about this episode pisses me off. Hulk Hogan and Bob Backlund are right at the center of it.
This match, it went on too long, but again, I thought for what it was fine. They had all the classic spots. You know what I mean? The ref being distracted, the choke on the ropes, the blind tags, all that stuff.
15
it was okay.
minutes of cheap heat.
The build up to this match was, in real life, Brutus the Barber Beefcake had his face completely smashed all to hell, and he was gone from wrestling for about 2 years. They had to reconstruct his entire face. By the way, I watched WrestleMania 30 with Brutus Beefcake.
What?
We got high and drunk, and we watched it. He was at a friend's house of mine. That's a long story, but I watched it with him.
Now, the only thing I don't believe about that story is that you watched WrestleMania with him. I totally believe that you got high and drunk with Brutus Beefcake. But as far as watching the WrestleMania with him, no way.
Beefcake, no, it really happened, and Beefcake got fucked up as the night went on. Well, we all did. That's fine. I'm not judging the guy.
Right.
But as the night went on, he began talking about this accident that happened to his face, and he talked about it.
Did shit get like real dark? Was it all like
It
lighthearted?
was all,
it took like a down note.
Yeah, quick. Man. Like he started talking about what happened, but he wouldn't stop talking about it for like 45 minutes. And I'm not trying to make light of it.
Did you videotape this?
No, I didn't, man. I'm not trying to, because again, he's a nice guy, so I don't want to shit talk him. But he wouldn't stop talking. He's like, "In my whole face. See, what you don't realize is you have these air pockets in your face. All of these were gone. I had to take my thumb, and my soft palate had fallen in my mouth, and I had to push it up just to breathe." Meanwhile, I'm watching WrestleMania. I'm like, "Fuck, dude!" Like, I'm high. Like I'm hearing this shit. I'm like, Jesus Christ, bro.
Like he tells this story for 45 minutes,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everyone in the room is stone cold sober.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Well, there went my fucking bus."
Oh,
Thanks, Brutus Beefcake.
I drove home past a checkpoint with a 0.0 BAC. It was fucked up, man. But but that gets us to where we are. Beefcake in real life has his face reconstructed.
Yeah.
And then they do this whole angle where they acknowledge that on TV, and then DiBiase hits him with the briefcase, and it quote shatters his face again. So Hogan has to come out of retirement or from whatever shitty, Super Ninja Nanny movie he was filming at the time, and he cuts this beautiful promo on Monday Night Raw that you need to YouTube if you get the chance, where he's like, "I got the call that my brother Brudi had almost died. So, brother, I hopped on the hog and drove across the country to find Brother Brudi in the hospital, brother." And he held up his hand, and he looked at me, and he said, "Hulk, we can do this together." It was something like that. It was.
What?
I'm underselling the shit out of it. It's a great promo.
I think he went to the Lex Luger School of Acting.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was
better
terrible.
Acting in a Mexican soap opera.
So Brutus has the mask, and they do the match. And here's what I don't understand. They I guess the Team Money or Money Inc. That was their
Money
name.
Inc. Yeah.
DiBiase and IRS. They were the tag champs. I guess they didn't want to transition the belts on to the Mega Maniacs because of what would happen later in the show. So there's this weird fucking bullshit moment in the match where, and you remember this, where like the ref gets knocked out,
yeah.
But then Brutus and Hogan both pin Money Inc. And then Jimmy Hart takes off his jacket because he had those crazy jackets, and he flips it out, and it's like referee stripes on the jacket. And then he won, like he makes the pin himself.
Yeah.
And then Hogan and Brutus, like they stand up, they raise their arms, and they grab the tag titles like they believe in their minds that's legal.
Yeah.
And they just
won. I think that was a little bit of foreshadowing toward the main event, because if there's anything that WrestleMania 9 taught us, rules in professional wrestling don't matter. There's no officiating. That's out the window. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
If your friend has a vaguely referee-like shirt, all he's got to do is count, and you get the title.
He can count.
And we'll see a little bit of that later on in the main event, won't we?
But the crowd buys into it.
Of course they do. The faces went over, and good prevailed.
And it's like Hogan. It's like Hogan at this point has been wrestling for years on TV. It's like, how do you Hulk, how do you not know that's not legal?
Right.
So, but then a referee comes in, he reverses his decision, and he says it's a DQ, but then for some reason Hogan poses afterward like he won
Everybody
something.
else has to leave the ring.
Yeah.
The 2 guys that just won the tag titles, they have to leave the ring or retain them rather.
Yeah.
But Hogan's got to pose.
And they open up this briefcase that IRS had, and there's money in it. And they throw the money out into the crowd, and finally that wakes them the fuck up.
Yeah.
How much time, by the way? Where are we at in this podcast?
We're running up on 44 minutes.
Jesus Christ, man. We could, I was afraid this one was going to go short.
Yeah, this was the episode we were like, well, we should probably try to cut it down a little bit.
Yeah. I know, right? We're going to try to go through this, but also explore it. The next match in the card, the 6th one, Lex Luger defeats Mr. Perfect, 10 minutes, 56 seconds. I thought this was a good match.
Yeah, we'll agree on that. It was a fine match. And not only was it just a fine match, but it was a fine match is a really, really good match for Lex Luger.
Oh, yeah. No, it was. Yeah.
It was. But then again, you had Mr. Perfect leading the entire match. So
I mean, this is one of Luger's best matches outside of his 80s feud with Ric Flair I've ever seen.
And this was the narcissist heel Lex Luger, right? The one with the loaded forearm or whatever?
Yeah, but they hadn't – I don't think they had yet established that he had – the steel plate in his forearm from the motorcycle accident.
So this might have been right after slamming Yokozuna and that special.
No. This is before, because that's when Luger inexplicably turned babyface.
Yeah.
Remember, they were on the U.S. warship and they did this whole deal where where Yokozuna challenged anybody to slam him.
Famous football players and people, all kinds of people.
And you know what? Let's get to this in a future podcast because there's just too much. Yeah, Luger arrives on a helicopter and suddenly he loves USA. And he's a babyface. That was beautiful. But no, in this match, he was led by Perfect. Perfect did a great job.
Absolutely.
Luger did a great job. Speaking of Perfect, Luger was named the narcissist at this point. Yeah. And Perfect himself in the pre-match promo with Mean Gene can't even get that word out. Remember that? He goes, narcissist, Luger!
Because shouting makes it better.
Yeah.
Just show that you're frustrated. Fuck it, and just yell.
So they do the whole deal. Luger wins, and they did it when it was Luger gets the backslide on Perfect.
Yes.
But Perfect's legs are in the rope. The referee does not see that, which I believe the ref was Danny Davis, I think. And he makes the pin, 1, 2, 3.
That was kind of odd, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Perfect objects, but then Luger, even after he wins in the match, hits him with the elbow and it knocks him out. What I did like was that when Perfect wakes up, he's all, and then he kind of points to the crowd like, there was something fishy about that elbow there.
Right.
And then he goes to the back. Now, normally the show would cut away and then you would, but no, the camera follows him into the back. He tries to attack Luger, but then Shawn Michaels, who is standing next to Luger, attacks Perfect, and that would lead to SummerSlam 93 when Perfect wrestled Shawn Michaels in a match.
Yeah, which, boy, I can't wait to see that one.
Hey, what's wrong with that? What the fuck was...
I don't know if it's just...
You don't Kyle, like Perfect and Michael? I mean, the match wasn't that great, but they were two great wrestlers.
Kyle, I've had a bad week.
You are a bitter guy. I'm
an asshole.
Can't wait to see that motherfucker. What the fuck did Shawn Michaels ever accomplish?
Everything there is to accomplish in wrestling? Absolutely everything would be the answer to that question. 7th match in the show, Undertaker defeats Giant Gonzalez. Oh my God, that match was so hard to watch. I will say that is my absolute favorite version of the Undertaker. The gray boot covers or whatever he had,
the gray gloves.
Yeah, I really like that one. I didn't like the purple. I like the gray. That's my favorite, hands down, my favorite Undertaker. And if you watch that match, I maintain that scowl that was on Undertaker's face for the entire match was reserved solely for the fact that he had to wrestle Giant Gonzalez.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Fucking Paul Bearer said, Percy Pringle said in an interview, he said they walked back through the curtain after that match, and Percy and he called him Wendy because of the Wendy's, the long red hair. That's what they called Undertaker. That's what Percy called Undertaker. He said, me and Wendy looked at each other, and right as if on cue, just at the exact same time, we said, thank God that's over. Because he got injured and he went out through the ring, and he said he was talking to Percy backstage, and he was like, please, let's let this be the finish. I don't want to go back out there.
You know what my favorite thing is? I got to mention this. Macho Man Randy Savage is on commentary. And we talked about this before we went on here. Savage was crazy at this point, like because I don't think Savage was a bad commentator, but there were certain nights where you just couldn't shut him up. No. And JR and Heenan both had to contend.
Up into the danger zone.
Oh yeah, and
I don't even know where that is, but I need to go there quick.
Yeah, because apparently they have the best cocaine in all the land. And during this show, Savage on commentary, he goes, "They're jam-packed. They're hanging from the rafters." And then it's like he realizes there are no rafters. And he goes, "If there were rafters, but there aren't. They're hanging from the pillars. Oh, yeah." And there's like a moment of silence where you could tell that Bobby...
For Savage's career?
And JR are just like, this man is coked out of his mind right now.
That's when it both hit him, right there in that moment.
This match obviously was terrible, though. Yokozuna, Undertaker, just shitty.
Gonzalez, Undertaker.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that match would also be shitty. But yes, Gonzalez and Undertaker, 7 minutes and 33 seconds, which makes it relatively one of the shortest matches on the card. But it felt like it was 7 hours and 33 minutes.
It really did, and it just goes to show you, man. When you're leading a match, there's only really so much you can do.
Oh, absolutely, man.
I mean, there's nights when the Great Steamboat, like when you put Ravishing Rick Rude in the ring with the Ultimate Warrior. Rude did his best. He did his best. That's all you can do sometimes, and I feel like that's what happened with Gonzalez and Undertaker was you get an E for effort, big guy, big red.
I love Gonzalez's outfit, by the way, because they plucked him from WCW where he was El Gigante. Gigante, yeah. When he debuted in WWF, he had this airbrushed naked man outfit.
Yeah, it was the Visible Man. He looked like Slim Goodbody. He looked like a big-ass Slim Goodbody.
Yeah, except a half-retarded Slim Goodbody. Because he had the back of his tights, like he was naked, like it was an airbrushed ass.
Yeah.
And he had like this pubic fur on the dick.
Yeah, and little patches and clumps of hair all over the fucking suit.
Yeah. The match ends when Harvey Whippleman, who is managing Giant Gonzalez, gives him a rag with chloroform on it. And you even hear Savage go, "I can smell it. What's that smell?"
It doesn't have an odor. Does chloroform even have an odor?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's like, but what's funny is that when Whippleman hands it off to him.
By the way, I don't know that.
Yeah. Right.
Oh no, it doesn't, Jeremy. Let me tell you.
It doesn't really have an odor, but it makes your butt really sore.
That's a tweet.
Yeah.
That's a tweet right there.
Whippleman hands off the rag with chloroform on it to El Gigante, Giant Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And Giant Gonzalez turns around, and for some reason, it's like he's scared of it.
Yeah.
So he's holding the rag like at arm's length as far as he can.
Yeah.
And then he turns around with this look on his face to the Undertaker like, Will you smell this and see if it smells like it? Was just so awkward and weird looking to watch that.
Everything that Gonzalez did was terrible. Earlier in the match when he's selling, because Taker hits like 3 clotheslines in a row or whatever. He
starts seizing.
He sells it like Frankenstein, who was just reanimated. Like
you got to believe that was Vince, kind of.
I guess, but I mean, even Vince, because Vince loves big guys, had to watch this and go, "Fuck, this is terrible." But what I love is that he puts the chloroform rag onto the Undertaker, and Undertaker is selling it, but then the ref sees this happening, and I would assume that when you try to kill a man with chemicals, that's an automatic disqualification. Yeah. But instead, the referee administers a 5 count. He's like, 1, 2, like as if he let go of the chloroform rag at 4. It would have been legal.
Just like with the corner, if he gets to 5, he doesn't throw the match out. He just starts pulling on your arm. Yeah. No, come on, no date raping. Come on, quit it.
Yeah. So he hits 5, disqualification. They put Taker on the stretcher. They stretcher Taker to the back. Taker comes back. The crowd pops. He clotheslines him. That's how that ends. And God knows. I mean, Taker continued to feud with Harvey Whippleman after that, but that's not even a joke.
No, I know. But it's still funny.
That's a real. So we go to the main event, and I'm going to try to wrap this up. I'm so sorry that we have gone over this time, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, it's fine, man.
It's just, I don't even know how. 8 minutes, 55 seconds, Yokozuna defeats Bret Hart via table salt. What I love about this is that before the main event, you okay?
Yeah, dude, I'm fine.
Before the main event even happens, they don't interview Bret. They don't interview Yokozuna. Yeah. They interview Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Which should have been an indication that
guess how this match is ending.
That some bullshittery was afoot.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Mean Gene's like, well, let's get Hulk Hogan's take on this. And homie like, no, I want to hear Bret Hart. What's Bret Hart think about Bret Hart's match? And to his credit, Bret Hart carried Yoko through a decent match. It wasn't long. Yoko was pretty immobile, but, he was agile, but he was also immobile in a way, and the match was fine.
I think my favorite part about that match was watching Bret Hart try, God bless him, so hard to get the sharpshooter on those big ham hocks. But he pulled, well-ish. As good as a sharpshooter can look on a 600-pound man.
I like the spot at the end where Bret Hart pulls off the top turnbuckle. Yoko tries to throw Bret's face into it. Yeah. Bret stops and hits him, and then he puts him in the sharpshooter. And before Yoko can tap, that's when Fuji throws salt in his eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I thought
that's what I was so weak at earlier. Via table salt.
I thought that after he got the salt in the eyes, Yoko would get up and then drop a leg on him or something. Right. 1, 2, 3. No, he just pins him. I mean, granted, I'm sure salt in the eyes is painful, but I think that you can physically kick out.
I'm pretty sure you can get your shoulder up off the mat when you have something in your eye.
You would think, but apparently maybe Bret has high blood pressure and he was worried.
He was worried he was going to have the pin stroke.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what happened. So Hogan, who at this point I don't believe they had ever established previously that he had any type of relationship with Bret Hart, comes out to protest the ending of this match.
Yeah, I don't.
And
that was the foreshadowing earlier I was talking about, where apparently just rules don't matter. Just Hogan, if you want to win the title, you just go out there and wrestle. You don't sign a match. No. There's no sanction. No. There's no rules. There don't even really have to be a referee.
No.
If you want the title, you just go beat up the guy who just wrestled for 15 minutes, and you just take it from him and you win.
Oh yeah, no, you don't need Jack Tunney to sign off on the rules.
You don't need none of
the WCW board of directors or the fabled international committee.
It's all frog hair. Who gives a shit?
Right. So, Hogan comes out and he's trying to help Bret to the back, but then Mr. Fuji gets on the microphone and in extraordinarily broken English says something to the effects of, with subtitles, I believe.
Yeah.
Hogan, Yokozuna's challenging you to a match. Because, again, Bret just lost the world title. So Hogan comes in and at, I believe it was 22 seconds, and I'm not exaggerating, it was 22 seconds, they have a match and Hogan wins. Keep in mind, Yokozuna just beat Bret Hart. Bret could not beat Yokozuna in 9 minutes, but Hogan can in 22 seconds because they do the deal where they were going to throw salt in Hogan's eyes, but he gets out of the way and it hits Yoko. Hogan hits the leg, 1, 2, 3. He's suddenly champion.
It almost seemed like Vince was standing backstage peeking through the curtain, and we're getting towards the end. Like he takes off the turnbuckle, Bret Hart blocks it and puts Yokozuna's head into it, and the crowd's dead silent. It's almost like Vince was watching through the curtain going, we're losing them. We're losing them. Give me Hogan. Someone get me Hogan quick. We got to turn this crowd around.
Get out there, God damn it, and win. So 22 seconds. Apparently, and by the way, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Hogan's gigantic shiner that he had. The black
that was
eye.
Weird. The eye filled with blood and shit. That was really odd. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that I look so forward to every one of your impersonations you do on every episode, and I couldn't even get a fucking Fuji impersonation. That was the one I was waiting for.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, it's fine now.
I don't think I've ever done a Fuji.
Don't humor me. It's fine.
I'll work on the Fuji. I can't do it.
Maybe the next episode.
Maybe next one.
That was the one I was waiting.
I guess Hogan had gotten into a jet ski accident, although earlier in the show, Money Inc. alluded to the fact that they paid off some random guys.
Him and Sonny Bono went skiing.
Yeah, that's what it was. So yeah, Sonny died, but Hogan hit that tree. Yeah. They raised the hand 1, 2. Raised it. No. He hulked up and dropped the leg on that tree.
You're damn right he did.
And Sonny jobbed out like a pussy was.
I'm a real American. Did you? Speaking of which, I know we're going off subject here. But we've never talked about this, and I've talked about this with every wrestling fan I know.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the music video Hulk Hogan did in the 80s where he's playing the American flag Fender Stratocaster in the video?
I don't know if I have or not.
Holy shit! Guess what we're doing after this episode goes off?
I have to see this.
It's a green screen. It's shot on chroma key, and he's playing an American flag Fender Stratocaster, and he's not even like fingering chords. He's
that
just
sounds like,
and he's shaking his skullet back
he's not
and
even
forth.
fingering chords because he can actually play. Like,
no, I don't think he is.
He's a pretty proficient bass player. Yeah, he played in several bands in the 70s.
I really don't think he was. It's horrible, and he's just like shaking his head, and his skullet's flying around from each.
That's
it's
beautiful.
the sexiest thing you've ever seen.
Oh God, I got wood right now.
I did, yeah. I we're talking about it.
So Hogan. So the show ends. Hogan would lose the title obviously to Yokozuna 3 months later at King of the Ring. Apparently, the plan and the way they described it to Brett was that they were going to do a SummerSlam match in '93, Hogan versus Brett for the world title. Brett hears that Hogan refuses to job to him, although he'll job to an exploding camera at King of the Ring. Did you ever watch that, by the way?
Yeah.
I think we should talk about that one
That's
later.
That's a good
on.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
Every time we do an episode, we come up with ideas for 10 new episodes.
There's just so much shit.
There really is.
There's a random guy on the apron with like a long beard and hair, and he has like a 1920s camera.
Yeah, he's definitely not a wrestler.
Hogan walks up to him for some reason, and the light bulb explodes in Hogan's face. Yoko drops the leg and he wins. But
it was wonderful. I thought it was really well done. I don't think we should cover it on this show.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
We should start a greatest angles in wrestling history podcast just to talk about that.
Hogan was such a piece of shit in that way.
He's really
like he was leaving the company, and he knew he was leaving the company, and you can't job clean to a 500-pound man,
right? Yeah,
because you know that was Hogan's idea.
Yeah.
Like it was like, no, the only way I'm going out is if a man with a 1920s camera explodes a fireball in my fucking face, Yoko.
That's the only way that it can happen. Don't get me started on Hogan, dude. We're running.
I'm sorry.
We're running up on an hour right now. We're just over an hour.
Okay.
Please don't get me started.
Well, you know what? I think that concludes our WrestleMania 9 podcast. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Only about Hogan, but it's fun.
Only about Hogan.
Yeah.
No, so, again, I thought that, it wasn't a good WrestleMania. The booking decisions were fucking retarded.
It's still not. It's still better than Starrcade '97.
It was. I mean, no, it really was, because Starrcade '97, in my mind, did irreparable damage to the company, whereas WrestleMania 9 was just fucking stupid. It was
like I said, I'm pretty sure they just handed a child a bunch of wrestling figures, and then whoever he paired up to play with, that's who they put in the match.
No, I think that's what it was. Yeah, I do think that's what it was.
Well, I mean, eventually you just exhaust all of your mental faculties, and you got to start looking for other areas to pull from on how to book a card.
Well, it
makes sense. He'd been doing it so long at that point.
It just made no sense for Hogan to win the world title at that time, because they had lost so many guys. I mean, the mass exodus of talent in late '92.
Oh yeah.
Like late '92 to early '93, it's only a few months, but if you look at if you look at SummerSlam '92, which was kind of like the last show of that heyday era, and then Royal Rumble '93, they lost everybody.
Yeah,
everybody left. So they were kind of turning over the new leaf with Bret Hart and Yokozuna and Razor Ramon, and later on Diesel. So to give the title to Hogan, it didn't make any sense. And I love that. I read Hulk Hogan's autobiography, and
sorry to hear that.
He said, "Yeah, oh God, that fucker could be listed under fiction." Which, by the way, quick side story, I know we're going over here, but I got to mention it. In Hulk Hogan's autobiography, he claims that after WrestleMania 2, he kicked John Belushi out of his party because he couldn't keep up with him doing drugs. Never mind the fact that by WrestleMania 2, John Belushi was fucking dead.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen.
Maybe he meant Jim.
Oh God, I can see that.
I would kick Jim out of my party just because
he's Jim
Belushi. Jim Belushi was at my party. I'd fuck him.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here, you son of a bitch.
Thank you for 30 unfunny years, you son of a bitch.
Hogan in his autobiography claimed that Vince's problem, and the problem with WrestleMania 9, and the reason his title reign didn't work, was because they needed to get behind Hulkamania more than ever, brother.
Yeah, man, I guess. I'm so angry this week. I don't.
Are you okay?
It was just a rough week.
You need to go crank one out, man. You all right?
Maybe.
Thinking about Hulk Hogan with that Stratocaster and that skullet. Is that what it is?
No, last night was great, man. I got laid last night and drank all kinds of beer.
Oh, that's fucking good.
And I got drunk Friday night.
Yeah.
I haven't done that in a long time. You'd think I'd be in a better mood.
So what's the problem?
I don't know. I think the sex was lackluster last night.
Okay.
And for once, it wasn't my fault, and I don't know how to handle it.
It wasn't your fault.
The Cats lost.
Oh,
the Wildcats lost, and my girlfriend's a diehard Cats fan.
Yeah, so am I.
So I think she was just going through the motions.
Oh, no.
You know, and it's
she
fine.
Didn't,
it's the only time I've ever really.
She didn't pay enough attention to your. Didn't pay enough attention to your Willie Cauley Stein.
She didn't.
That what it is?
She didn't, man. It's exactly what it was.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Maybe just a rough week.
Mm-hmm. You did you at least pay attention and motorboat her Harrison twins?
I did, man.
You did?
I got all up in them. I don't know enough about UK to make any funny play on words, but I'll just agree. Okay. Yeah, I did all that stuff.
Well, I'm sorry, and I hope it turns around for you. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Wrestlemania 9. I think we should do more shows in the future. We should also do more angles. This was episode 3. Again, we're going to work on putting this on other platforms in addition to YouTube. But if you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe. Please share it with your friends. Please like it. We're a couple of guys who are 2 comedians, former professional wrestlers, huge wrestling fans. We want to make a little bit of fucking money off this thing that we're having so much fun doing each and every single week.
Absolutely, man. I think it's going to do it for us this week.
All right. Thank you so much. Jeremy's getting choked up right now thinking about that sex last night.
I did, man. It tore me up. Thank you for listening. We're out of here.
All right. See you next week, guys.